All right, thank you. I'm ready. All right, so my story starts, I'm ready, starts on a place that we're all familiar with, or most of us in the room here are familiar with, the Memorial, oh, we're not ready. There we go, the Memorial Union Terrace on the shores of Lake Mendota. It goes back on one of those warm, gorgeous summer nights in 1995 where the music was sweet, the camaraderie awesome, and the line to get a draft beer was way, way, way too long. There had to be a better way. And as an engineering student, of course, there's a better way. So what's the first thing you do? You dive into the patent database to look at the history of the evolution of beer pouring technology. So I went back to the 1800s and early 1900s, and it turned out that the modern beer tap sort of came about in around 1940. It's the same taps that are used here, invented by a guy by the name of Hilbert Perlich. Perlich Company is kind of the big company doing that. So this was an industry that was clearly ripe for some innovation. And I had some ideas in terms of how to make the beer pour faster, so I partnered up with a couple of friends of mine who are also engineering students at the time. And we created this half-working prototype, entered it into an invention contest, and won first prize. We won $10,000 for inventing the TurboTap. Yeah, thanks. And since so many stereotypes converged on this, Wisconsin, students, beer, the media picked up on it big time. So we were on the cover of the Life section of the USA Today. We're in a bunch of newspapers, and this, mind you, with a barely working prototype. And we even ended up getting mentioned. There was a joke that Jay Leno mentioned about us in one of his monologues. So our phone was ringing off the hook with people interested in TurboTap, except we didn't have anything that really worked. So we took some of the money, the $10,000, we applied for a patent, we took some of the other money and started to build some progressively better prototypes with the goal of getting licensing the technology to a big brewery, because that's what everyone said we should do. We should license it to a big brewery. Need some more beer, like Anheuser-Busch. And we ended up with a meeting with the top brass there. They wined and dined us in the executive dining room, gave us an insider tour to the brewery, and it was just like this dream come true going there. We had this PowerPoint presentation. That's one of the real slides where we talked about the technology and why it was poised to revolutionize the way draft beer was poured. If only Anheuser-Busch would license this stuff for $1 million. And then it came time to actually show off our prototype, which you saw earlier, and we hooked it up to a keg at Anheuser-Busch, and all we could pour was foam. We bombed. Oh. So I went and worked on some other internet startups and did all right there. And then in 2002, when the dot-com bubble burst, I created TurboTap 2.0, which was a result of trying to figure out what went wrong with 1.0, and also a lot of R&D, which I call research and drinking. Research because we actually did a lot of computational fluid flow analysis. Drinking because the only way you were really sure that all worked was to pour real beer through your device. So we ended up creating what's the modern version of the TurboTap, and once it was running and working, we wanted to really show it off. We thought the best place to show it off would be in a sports stadium where you need to pour a lot of beer fast. So with some finagling, we ended up with a demo, a trial run at Wrigley Field. The Wrigley folks loved it. We spent about 2 months taking down lots of data, timing pours, doing all sorts of things. And what we learned is that, it poured beer faster, but it also wasted a lot less beer. Wrigley was getting about 10 to 15% better yields per each keg, which is awesome. So with that data, we were able to raise some additional capital. We went into production, and we landed our first paying customer, which was in Cleveland, Quicken Loans Arena. They had just drafted LeBron James and had a need to pour more beer. And then later that spring of 2005, Wrigley installed all their TurboTaps, and since Wrigley had them, the Sox called us up, and they had to have them too. And that led to, the word then just started to spread about these great new beer taps that were in use in Chicago, and the Wall Street Journal ran a cover story, which is a great place to be if your product goes to sports team owners and that kind of thing. So our phone just started ringing off the hook, and that was kind of, now we're off to the races with this new technology. So kind of a fun journey that, today the technology has been used to pour hundreds of millions of beers in a majority of sports stadiums and arenas around the country. And, in spite of all that, my favorite place to still enjoy a cold TurboTap beer is where it all started, at the Memorial Union Terrace. Cheers, everybody.